Hello, fellow followers. Welcome back to FanZcene. Greg here, and today I have for you, Hollywood has never wanted you to own physical copies of movies. Now, I've brought this up a couple times in some of my videos here, especially when I talk about physical media. And, I've done some research, and I really wanted to delve into this and let you guys know what I actually mean when I say in my videos and what I just said now, that Hollywood doesn't want you to own physical copies of their movies and never have, and have never really been huge fans of physical media in general, like home media releases and stuff. I want to start off first here with this article, and this is going to play back into everything I want to talk about. This may not have something to do right away with what I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to bring it all back down to this because I think this is important to learn for some of the people out there who may not know. It says, the day the Supreme Court killed Hollywood studio system. All right, so we're going to scroll down here, and it says, Hollywood's greatest drama took place over 2 decades in a fight that featured movie barons, President Franklin Roosevelt, Walt Disney, Charlie Chaplin, and the United States Supreme Court. In the end, the court ruled in United States versus Paramount, because Paramount was one of the biggest studios at the time, and this was all started with them and what they were doing, and all these studios were doing. It says, on May 4th, 1948, finding that the studios had violated antitrust laws in a devastating blow to 5 major studios and 3 smaller ones, the case had roots dating back to 1921, when concerns first arose about the studios and the Sherman Antitrust Act. The major studios had a near monopoly on the movie business in the United States. Each studio had exclusive contracts with actors and directors, owned the theaters where their movies played, worked with each other to control how movies were shown in independent theaters, and in some cases owned the companies that processed the film. I'm sure some of you already know where I'm headed with this, and we'll bring it all back around to this by the end of the video. I swear I'm going to show you what I mean by all this. So basically what happened was these Paramount and other movie studios in Hollywood, they had complete control of everything, control of the actors, the directors. They owned the theaters and only exclusively showed their movies in these theaters, and would force other independent theaters who they didn't own to show only their movies, or they wouldn't allow their movies to be played there. So they had this huge monopoly, and the government Supreme Court essentially killed the studio system back in 1948 that they had, right? Okay. And so this is what happened. And then not long ago in 2020, this law was actually overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court, citing that the way we watch movies and TV and entertainment now is because of TV, network cable, DVD, and all that. This law was no longer important. So this has been stricken, but this is going to get to where I'm talking about here, guys, because there you guys have that. So 1948 in May, the studio system was destroyed. They had these big, we owned everything, theaters, everything. So now let's move on to where I'm going to start talking to you guys about how Hollywood has never really wanted you to own physical media, physical copies, and it's all preceded by piracy. Piracy has always supposedly been their biggest concern. So let's go on to this article here that I'm going to bring up for you guys about Roddy McDowall. Who remembers Roddy McDowall? He was, famous for the Planet of the Apes movies and Fright Night. So it says, when Roddy McDowall was busted by the FBI for pirating films. Okay, so let's scroll down here. And it says, in a report dated July 22nd, 1975, the FBI recorded the details behind one of the biggest raids of a pirated movie collection in the agency's history. That previous December, agents had descended on an opulent home in North Hollywood and seized more than 160 film canisters and more than 1,000 video cassettes from the garage, all unlawfully copied, for at least in their opinions, for the use in private screenings. The FBI estimated the collection to be worth more than $5 million. And of course, this was Roddy McDowall's house they raided. So I want to scroll down here. It says, fed up with the theft of their content, which may have cost them an estimated $1 billion in revenue annually, the studio-backed MPAA, imagine that, studio-backed, began a vigorous fight against infringement in the early 1970s. Bootleg sellers were concerned and litigated, and the government, if the government could prove they profited from the sale of the bootleg film, which could carry a price tag in the hundreds of dollars, fines and jail time were put on the table. This is all very important, because where I'm going to lead to with how they don't want you on this and piracy, I want to get to this. This is something very important that's been on my mind, and I hope you guys understand where I'm going to go with this. It says, it's possible that the MPAA and the FBI didn't stop to consider that some sizable collections would be found inside the industry's own inner circle. But actors, producers, and studio personnel had something that conventional pirates had a difficult time accessing: original high-quality prints of major studio films. Some would be loaned out to talent for private screenings and then returned. Others could be purchased outright, although never for duplication process it. In a written statement handed over to the FBI, McDowell said that he had been collecting prints since the 1960s, when the actor had the money and means to begin acquiring personal copies of both his favorite films and those he had personally appeared in. The object, he explained, was to study the performances of other actors and to guard against the possibility that some might wind up being lost to neglect or age. What did we just cover here on the channel? Hollywood is facing digital decay. All the movies that they lost in the silent movie era, movies that were put on VHS that are never making it to DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming. And there's people out there who have always wanted to preserve this and do this, and they've always been condemned because Hollywood doesn't see it the way we see it about preserving and taking care of these films. They just don't care. They just want to make money. They really just, that's all, everything's made to make money, but that's all they care about. The latter was not unfounded, was not an unfounded fear. Studios had been notoriously negligent in film preservation in the early part of the century. McDowell eventually ended up with some 337 different films, many of which he transferred to cassette for easier storage in the belief that they might be better preserved that way. Now listen to this. It says, since his collection predates the mid-1970s introductions of VHS and Betamax, it's possible he used Sony's magnetic tape technology, an expensive early format that never caught on with the general public. When McDowell grew tired of a certain film, he would sell it to a fellow collector. So like, it wasn't like this was going on amongst all the people in Hollywood, you know, and generally for whatever price he recalled paying for it in the first place. 3 unnamed films he wrote once cost him a total of $705. He specifically recalled wanting to own Escape from the Planet of the Apes so that he could have a copy of his character's death scene. 20th Century Fox offered to sell him prints. They offered to sell him prints of the Apes series along with How Green Was My Valley. Unhappy with quality, he declined because they just want, you know, it's not the actual negative and stuff. He wants to see what it looks like, which is where we're at with the 4K. We want to actually see what the actual negative look like, the proper color timing, the proper sound, everything. What's studios still like to mess with that. Instead, the FBI raid found films like My Friend Flicka, Last You Come Home, and hundreds of others. Rather than face criminal penalties, McDowell told authorities that singer Mel Torme, actor Dick Martin, and Rock Hudson were known to be collectors. He also had business dealings with Ray Atherton, a high-profile bootlegger the government had been targeting for some time. His disclosure of these contacts probably saved McDowell from being the first celebrity movie pirate to be charged with a crime. Now, honestly, I've read ahead on this. They didn't care about Roddy McDowell. They didn't care about Rock Hudson, Mel Torme. They really just wanted Ray Atherton, because that's the guy that was pirating movies and helping these collectors out. So for the MPA, the resulting seizure of McDowell's collection, the FBI never named his tipster or what led to McDowell was significant, and their game criminal investigation, a well-known party, acted like a warning flare to other pirates. Media coverage of McDowell's incident forced bootleggers to burrow further underground, driving up the prices for films. Not exactly the movie lover gift ideal one might expect. Exactly. The FBI didn't pursue Hudson or see. This is where because they don't care about these. The FBI didn't pursue Hudson or any other parties McDowell named. The big fish was Atherton, who was charged but had his conviction overturned in 1977 because these are all basically pointless charges. Roughly 20 other dealers were indicted, with several convicted of conspiracy. The court proceedings were sometimes livened by the appearance of celebrities like Gene Hackman, who testified on behalf of the government, which this is sad to hear, to drive home the economic impact of pirated films. Only a few short years later, the Supreme Court would rule that videotaping movies and television using home cassette recorders in your own house was not copyright infringement so long as they were used for non-commercial purposes. The decision angered the MPAA, which saw the home video industry as a major threat to box office receipts. Later, they would profit handsomely from the sale of video cassettes. Exactly. They've never wanted you to have the control of owning a movie or videotaping something that they've made. And which is funny because it's absolutely ridiculous. And as we saw there, that they, eventually profited off of all this stuff. And now let's get into an article from 1987 from the LA Times, which we'll go into a little more detail about how they ended up liking video cassette and everything. So here we have an article from the LA Times that says how Hollywood learned to stop worrying and love the VCR. Home video has diminished the power of studios, but not their profits. So basically, this first part of the article talks about how they're celebrating the vast money they've made from home video, from video cassettes and everything. So I wanted to scroll down here where it gets into, you know, where they didn't like it at first. Okay, so it starts off right here. Then now remember, that's from 1987. It says there was a time when the term video software did not elicit such fond feelings among the leaders of the movie industry. In the summer of 1976, Andre Blay, a Michigan-based distributor and servicer of video equipment, wrote to the studios inquiring about the right to market their movies on video cassettes. Only 2 companies even bothered to respond, and one of them, MGM, simply informed him that the matter, not his proposal in particular, but MGM's attitude towards video cassettes in general, was under study. That fall, Universal Pictures filed a lawsuit charging that Sony, simply by selling its Betamax VCR, was a party to copyright infringement. The case dragged on until January 1984 when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Sony's favor. Sidney Sheinberg, the president of MCA Universal, felt so strongly about these matters that he renounced the co-chairmanship of a benefit for the American Film Institute upon learning that Sony was contributing $300,000 to the same cause. I cannot condone nor support any institution which is so oblivious to the interests of the Hollywood community, Sheinberg explained. Oh, by God, how dare people sell Betamax and VCRs and VCA tapes to the public? We're losing money. It's the studio system. We have to safeguard these movies and everything because we need to make our money off them. But in the end, they don't really care. They just don't care. And so it continues here. It says, although rarely expressed with such vehemence, fear of the VCR was the rule, not the exception in the Hollywood of the late 1970s. Selling movies on video cassettes was an ideal that went against a tradition as old as Hollywood itself, that of retaining the title to every print and selling the right to see the movie rather than the movie itself. Once a print was put in such a form, how could the studios keep pirates from... Here we are, piracy again. Pirates from getting their hands on it. But the 70s were a tumultuous time for Hollywood. New managements were coming and going with considerable frequency, and it was only a matter of time before one of the studios broke ranks. By 1976, 20th Century Fox, which is sadly owned by Disney now, imagine that, 20th Century Fox broke ranks, decided to... Anyways, it says, had weathered a few hard years. There was a lot of idle cash sitting around in its money bin. Although a year later, Star Wars would change all of that. So the company was ripe for a new ideal, especially an ideal that wouldn't cost much upfront and promised to make some money in the foreseeable future. In addition, Fox had a subsidiary called 20th Century Fox Telecommunications. Running it was a young executive named Stephen Roberts, who bore a resemblance to Dick Clark of American Bandstand fame, whatever. Cable TV was Roberts' principal domain, and it seemed to him that Hollywood had misjudged cable at first because they didn't like cable because the movies could play on cable, and they're losing money on cable. But we can't let our movies play on cable. We're losing money. They could pirate. Seeing it only as a threat to movie theaters, rather than as a way to reach a new audience. Roberts took it as part of his mission to save Fox from making such a mistake again. I took the position that I never wanted to see our company let a new technology come along and bury its head in the sand. That's going to come back and bite him in the end, isn't it? He said later, it's behoved Fox, Roberts believed, to find out just how much demand existed for movies on video cassettes and whether there was some way to satisfy it without giving aid and comfort to the pirates. Maybe that way to beat them was to compete with them. All right. Says, just as Roberts was preparing to run an experiment, he encountered Audrey Blay's letter. We were about to go into business ourselves to test the waters, Roberts said. We would use films that were already on commercial television, so I felt that we were risking very little, since anyone who wanted them could take them off the air as it was. But now we were going to sell those films without the commercials and unedited, because on commercial television, they were edited to fit the time slots. For a trial venture, it seemed sensible to let somebody else invest the capital. And here was Blay, ready, willing, and apparently able. Blay agreed to pay Fox in advance of $300,000 plus a minimum of $500,000 a year against a royalty of $7.50 on each cassette. None of them released more than recently than 1973. Basing his choices on Variety's estimates of box office receipts, he selected MASH, Patton, The French Connection, The King and I, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Look, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Imagine that, an Apes movie. Roddy McDowell. The Sound of Music, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and Hello Dolly, and 42 others. Blaze Company, Magnetic Video, already had a few machines to duplicate beta and VHS cassettes, but the new venture was on a different scale. Until then, 50 copies a week was a lot of copies, Blaze said. There was no one in the world equipped to undertake this mission, so we had to build our own factory, a facility. Now all these factories are gone, by the way. The Blu-ray DVD factories, there's like one left in America, and I think most of them are in China and Mexico. But this was factory to make VHS and stuff. A facility to make 20,000 cassettes a month. That was an unheard of figure at the time, although now there are factories that make 500,000 or more. No, there's not anymore. By October, Blay was ready to start selling, although not quite sure how. He began placing ads in trade publications that catered to record stores. Dealer inquiries invited, and the ad said. He also made a few tie-in deals with VCR manufacturers, allowing them to offer free or discounted cassettes to the customers. And with a $65,000 advancement and TV Guide, he launched a direct-to-mail sales operation called the Video Club of America. And from there, VHS and ended up beating out Betamax. The rise of the video store happened, and a lot of this took off. And the studios, as we mentioned with the Matt Damon clip, is that they started to make some pretty damn good money from home video releases. And all this was to do, they didn't want it because they feared piracy. And then eventually all this took off, and, piracy was still there. Piracy was still there, but it was basically like on street corners in New York and China City, stuff like that. And it was really bad copies of these movies. But home video lasted for a very long time. We got the VHS, and then we got DVD, and then we got Blu-ray. And then, of course, where we're at now, we have streaming. We had Netflix take off. Now let's think about the streaming and what we talked about earlier in the video, right? HBO Max, owned by Warner Brothers, plays exclusively Warner Brothers content and has directors and actors that they have contracts with to make movies exclusively for HBO Max. We have Paramount Plus, which is one of the very newer systems that is struggling really bad. Paramount, actors and directors and writers under contract to make shows and movies for Paramount Plus and Paramount Plus exclusively. We have Disney Plus and Hulu, which Disney is about to pretty much own Hulu, with exclusive contracts with actors and directors making only movies and TV shows for Disney Plus. Sounds a lot like the old studio Hollywood system from 1948, where they had control of the theaters and what can be seen and how can be seen and where it can be seen. As we know now, the studios don't care about theater system we see today. A lot of the theaters are in bad shape. Nobody really enjoys the theater going experience anymore. And we have the year of the flopbuster, which last year all the movies came out flopped, save for Super Mario Brothers, Barbie, Oppenheimer, and a few other movies that were real big. That's the only time like the Hollywood system really cares about theaters, is when movies like that hit and they go, you got to see these movies in theaters. And those movies were made to see in theaters. Even Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, his movie was made exclusively to see in theaters. Right? So now that brings us to today, and I want to show you guys this that I brought. This is from a guy who has been recording the DVD releases and everything since the very, very beginning. It's the DVD Blu-ray report. All right. This is a tweet he put out not long ago when the Oscars was coming out. It says, "What is wrong in Hollywood as annual Oscar telecast draws near? Dreadful film and series content management coupled with a miserable theatrical and physical media release strategy leading to a runaway piracy helpers." Whoa, wait a minute. I just went over this. Hollywood has wanted to control these movies because they want to stop piracy. That's why they didn't want movies to be seen on cable. That's why they didn't want home video releases. That's why they attacked Roddy McDowell. By the way, Roddy McDowell lost his career big time for a long time. And it wasn't until the movie Fright Night where he got back on track, and that was like his big comeback. And then sadly with Fright Night 2, which a lot of people don't know, is that Menendez brothers' father worked on that film as a producer, as executive producer or something, and Roddy McDowell and him did not get along. And so when the Menendez brothers ended up killing their mother and father, Roddy McDowell was actually brought in, and they thought maybe he did it. And that's why this movie, The Fright Night 2, is so hard to find on physical media, is because of controversy surrounding that. But regardless, I want to get back to this real quick, and we'll bring up this image he has here. And as if you can see here, It's what's wrong with the Hollywood studios in a nutshell. So this is for physical media releases, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, from the end of February 29th, 2024. So this year, we're 3 months into this year, and this was at the end of February. The studio affiliates, they only released 49 DVDs, 66 Blu-rays, 14 4Ks, totaling in 129 releases total with a 2.3%. Boutique and independent labels like Vinegar Syndrome, Shout Factory, and everything, they released 679 DVDs, 342 Blu-rays, 35 4Ks for 1,056 total releases for a 19.2%. That's pretty good. See, this is why we say we got to support boutique labels. Micro broadcasters, I'm not quite sure what these are, but I think maybe this might be like Mill Creek and Movies on Demand, which aren't quite boutique labels or independent labels, but like they produce stuff. They released 1,463 DVDs, 294 Blu-rays, no 4Ks, and 1,757 in total for 32% of the market. Now, helper sources. This is piracy. People say, "Well, with streaming and stuff, why pirate? Piracy's dead." No, piracy is bigger than ever now. So, as far as for the first 2 months of 2024, by the end of February 29, 2024. Pirates have released 1,788 DVDs, 752 Blu-rays, 13 4Ks for a total of 2,553 so far this year, with almost half of the physical media releases alone, 46.5% this year. So far this year, piracy is insane. And a lot of these movies are, like I mentioned, are not like the ones you would find on the street corners in New York and China and stuff. These movies are produced high quality Blu-rays and DVDs and 4Ks and packaging that looks so real. People buy these and don't know that these are pirates. They'll buy them thinking they're studio releases. They're selling them on eBay. They're selling them on Amazon, for Pete's sakes. They're everywhere, and you don't even know that they're pirates. And basically what they're pirating is the newer stuff on streaming and stuff that they won't put on DVD or Blu-ray or 4K, and some of the older films that Hollywood just don't care about, that will not pump up. You know, maybe they made a digital copy to rent on a digital service or something. So people have taken that and put it on a Blu-ray and DVD because Hollywood is not putting it on a Blu-ray or DVD. So there you guys have it. And that's what I'm saying. Hollywood has and never will care about you owning physical copies. They want to take that from you because they feel like they're losing money, that they have no control. Once it's given control to you and how you watch it and how you view it, they fear that you can turn against them. And I think that is happening with streaming today. You see that with streaming because it's sort of like the old studio system from 1948. They control streaming. They control how you watch it, where you watch it, when you watch it, and they don't want you to own it. They don't want you to own DVD. They don't want you to own a Blu-ray. They don't want to, because they've cut that off, and that's a whole revenue, which I don't understand, because you would think they would learn from the 80s and 90s and into the early 2000s when they were making bank off of physical media releases. That physical media is still important. It's still a $2 billion industry. Yes, it's not selling like it once was, but it is selling, and it's selling for $2 billion. That's a lot of money. That's nothing to sneeze at. And these pirates are making more money than the studios because they're putting out stuff that people want. So what's up, Hollywood? Why won't you give us physical media releases again? Give us those secondary releases, because when you go straight from the theater within 2 weeks of having a movie in theaters and putting it on digital, that's already being made a physical media copy by a pirate, and they're making money that you could have made if you would have just released that on a DVD or Blu-ray first before going digital. There's a way to have digital streaming work together with physical media, but you guys just don't care because you don't want us to own those physical copies. That's the way I see it. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. What do you guys think? Do you guys think Hollywood has never really wanted us to own physical copies of movies? Because I don't think they ever have, and they don't ever will. And until they figure out how to completely take over with streaming, which is failing miserably, who knows what will happen. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. And if you liked what you saw here, maybe consider hitting that like button or subscribing and hitting that bell for notifications. That would be awesome if I earn your guys' subscriptions, or possibly share the video out for everybody to see, or join and become a channel member, because that would help out my channel immensely. Thank you, and shout out to all my channel members. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you guys for being channel members here and for all of your support. And to everybody watching, whether you like me, hated me, or like this video, or hated this video, I thank you for sticking this long. Wherever you all are, please have a great, safe, happy, healthy day, morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Always support physical media. It truly is the superior format. Godspeed.